Welcome back, 3D students. In this video, we're going to make a little pedestal for our sword that we're going to import into our sword scene and then copy. So we're just going to make one part of it. The sword's going to need two, or I guess it could just rest on one, depends on what kind of look you want. But you'll see what I'm talking about when we get into this a little more. And I thought it would be best to make this now before we start talking about lighting and rendering, because the sword is going to need something to rest on and display it before we generate an image of it. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is create a box. And maybe something about like that. And this is a separate file from my sword. Turn on edge faces. You don't have to make everything in the same file in 3D Max. You can also just make things in different files and import them into other scenes. So I'm going to add an edit poly to this, and then I'm going to enter edge mode, and I'm going to grab all of these edges around the top. And then we're going to right click and we're going to bring up the chamfer settings. I'm going to move this over, and you can see here the amount is currently 0. If I do this, you can see exactly what that does. You can also see that it's only got one edge in the center here, so let's give it at least one more pair of edges and click the check. So now we've got a nice beveled edge around the top of this thing. Okay, now let's switch to the top view. And I'm going to get my move tool by pushing W on the keyboard and center this. Oops, I have to exit edge mode, but I'm going to center this. Then I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to go back to the Create tab. I'm going to create another box. And this one is going to be like this. And I'm just going to let go here in the top view and drag up a little bit, and then click to finish, and then right click to turn off creation mode and go back to the perspective view to see what it looks like. So I'm going to take this and move it on top, and I'm going to center it in X and Y space so it's centered on the box, on the other box. And then I'm going to switch to the front view, and let's check and make sure it's sitting exactly on top of the other box. Okay, now let's go to the Modify tab and add an Edit Poly modifier. I'm just going to type in ED, and you can see how that sorts them. I'm going to go to Polygon mode. I'm going to pull this polygon up further, like that. And then I'm going to scale it just in this one axis, in the x-axis. And I'm going to exit polygon mode because I think the whole thing needs to be a little wider, so I'm just going to scale that to make the base wider. Go back to polygon mode. I'm going to activate the move tool by pushing W on the keyboard. I'm going to move this over so it is like that. So this edge is basically straight, and this one is not. Now, if we want to make this thing a little fancy, we can get Swift Loop, and we can start to put edges like this. Switch to vertex mode, turn off Swift Loop, and pull those in like that. And you know the drill. Add two more edges halfway. Smooth that curve out. And we could add more edges. We could put one here, one here, one here, one here, and smooth it out even further if we wanted to. Alright, so let's go back to Swift Loop, and we're going to put edges here now. Let's put one about here and one about here. And let's go to polygon mode, and we're going to delete these three polygons. Just select them and push delete on your keyboard. Now, we can't leave this void in here, so we need to fill it. So we need to join these two edges and create a polygon right here. So let's go to edge mode, and we're going to use something called bridge. Click this edge, and then hold down Control and click this one, so you have them both selected. And go to your command panel and find bridge, and just click bridge, and that creates a polygon between those two. And then, because we have a continuous void here, right here, we can use border mode. So select border mode, click on each border. You can hold down Control to select them both. Right click and select cap. So now what we've done is cut a notch in this thing, basically. Now, one final thing we can do to this to make it look more natural is chamfer all the edges. So to do that, we're just going to come up here and add a chamfer modifier. And then adjust the amount right here to something relatively small. And you can see what that does is it sort of rounds off all the edges. It sort of makes it look more natural. So let's go ahead and save this file. And notice, because I have my sword project folder active here, it's going in the scenes folder. I'm just going to name this sword stand and click save. And then I'm going to take both of these two pieces here. I'm going to attach them to each other. But before I do that, I want to select each one. I'm going to select this one, go to polygon mode, delete this polygon since we're not going to see it. And then I'm going to go to this one and add an edit poly. Go to polygon mode and delete these 3 polygons because we're not going to see them. And then with one of these selected, we're going to scroll down in the command panel and find attach, and then click the other one, and that makes them both one mesh. And then to get rid of all these modifiers, we just right click and convert it to an editable poly. And now it's all clear, everything's collapsed. And the final thing I want to do is name this object. So let's name this, we can rename it right here. Let's name it stand 01 and then save it. Now to get this into our sword scene, let's open the sword scene. I'm going to go to File, Open, Recent. I'm going to find the sword file I was working on, which was 02. And then I'm going to go to File, Import, Merge. And I'm going to merge that stand. I'm going to select that scene and click Open. That's going to give me a list of the objects in the scene, and that's why I renamed this stand. I'm going to select it and click OK. And there's the sword stand. Now the sword needs to be rotated. So let's select all the objects that make up the sword, the jewels and the sword itself, and we're going to group them. So select them all, come up to Group, and create a group, and just name it Sword. Now we can rotate them and select them as one. So turn on Rotate tool, go to Angle Snaps, and rotate it 90 degrees this way. And then let's exit that. We can take our first stand object and move it over like so. And look at it in this view. Make sure it's not, make sure the blade is resting right on it. And we want another one over here on this end. So let's use the mirror tool. You can click right here, click mirror. I'm going to mirror it in the x-axis here. I'm going to make a copy. I'm going to move it over to the other side like this. Now then we need to rotate the sword a little bit this way, I think, and then a little bit this way so it, oops, let's turn off Angle Snaps. So this may take some doing. Let's see if we can do this and then move it down. You're just going to have to keep rotating it a little bit at a time and moving it down so that the handle is in there. And the blade is in there as well. And you may also have to reposition it. And you could also reposition the stand a little bit. I also rotated it this way because I feel like it's going to be, the crossguard is going to be embedded in the ground if I don't. So there you have it. The sword on a cool stand. So when we come back in the next video, we will add some lighting to the scene and make our first render. And I'll see you then.